Hey, mask తీసుకెళ్ళా? Good morning. Today my topic is care of newborn, care of low birth weight baby, and care of the preterm baby. So now I'll be dealing only with babies who are stable, and not with babies who are who have compromised cardiopulmonary status. Okay. That topic we'll be discussing in the next class. So what is newborn baby? First, let us go with definitions. Newborn baby, it is nothing but the healthy newborn infant born at term between 37 to 42 weeks and who cries immediately after birth and establishes independent rhythmic respiration and quickly adapts with extrauterine environment. So a newborn baby is a baby who who is delivered at 37, who is delivered between 37 to 42 weeks and who cries immediately after birth and establishes an independent rhythmic respiration and who adapts with extrauterine environment is called a newborn baby, stable newborn baby. So what do you mean by neonatal period? From birth to under 4 weeks of age, that is less than 28 days, an infant is called neonate, of which the first week of life is known as early neonatal period, and from 7th to 28th day it is known as late neonatal period. Post neonatal means it's a period of infancy from 28 days to less than 1 year of age. What do you mean by weeks of gestation? It refers to the completed weeks of gestation. For example, if you take as 36 weeks gestation, it refers to range of gestation from 36 weeks, 0 days to 36 weeks and 6. That means completed 36 weeks. So what do you mean by perinatal period? Perinatal period extends from 22nd week of gestation to less than 7 days of life. Live birth. Live birth is a product of conception, irrespective of weight or gestational age, that after separation from the mother shows any evidence of life such as breathing, heartbeat, pulsations of umbilical cord, or definitive movement of voluntary muscles. Fetal death means it's a product of conception that after separation from mother does not show any evidence of life. Stillbirth, it is fetal death at a gestational age of 22 weeks or more, or weighing more than 500 grams at birth. Term neonate, a neonate born between 37 and less than 42 weeks of gestation is called term neonate. And preterm neonate means a neonate born before 37 weeks of gestation, irrespective of birth weight. So care at birth. First, let us think that once the baby is delivered, the baby is handed over to you. So first, what we have to see is we have to look for 3 parameters: whether the baby is term, whether she is having spontaneous breathing or cry, and whether the tone is good. Good tone means flexion posture of the baby or active movements. If these 3 are present, if the answer to these 3 questions is yes, then the baby is a stable newborn baby. Stable newborn baby can be dealt with by keeping the child on the mother's abdomen. So care at birth. So before going into the delivery, before going to attend the delivery, what all equipments and what all preparations you have to make means: one health provider, either physician or nurse, trained in neonatal resuscitation should be present. A resuscitation team should be present, which includes a neonatologist, anesthetist. The resuscitation corner must be physically located in the delivery room. Prerequisite checklist: to provide warmth, we should have a preheat warmer, towels or blankets. For clearing of airways, we should have a bulb syringe or mucus sucker, what we call, or suction catheter attached to a wall section, which is set at 80 to 100 mm mercury pressure, and a meconium aspirator. And to auscultate, we should have a stethoscope. For oxygenation, we should have a free flow oxygen around 5 to 10 liters per minute. We should have a pulse oximeter probe to assess the saturations. And to ventilate, we should have a positive pressure device with term and preterm masks. We should have an oxygen or air source and also feeding tube and a syringe. For intubation, we should have a laryngoscope with blade size of 0, 0, 0 and 1. Here it's not 0, 0 is not mentioned, but for 0, 0 it is used for blade size of 0, 0 is used for extremely low birth weight babies. 0 is used for low birth weight babies. 1 is used for term babies. ET tube sizes of around 2.5, 3. If the child is 1 kilo, it is 2.5. It is 1. If it is 1 to 1.15 or 1.5 or 2, it is 3. If it is more than 1.5 to 3, 1.5 to 2.5, it is 3.5. And if the child is more than 3 kilos, 4 size ET tube should be used. For medication, we should have epinephrine, normal saline. We should have a naloxone. We should have catheters for umbilical venous catheterization and umbilical arterial catheterization. And to maintain thermoregulation, we should have a plastic bag or plastic wrap that will be useful for low birth weight babies. So before attending a child, we should maintain some standard precautions and asepsis at birth, for which we have to observe 5 cleans to prevent sepsis. One is clean hands by hand hygiene and wearing sterile gloves. Clean surface by using clean and sterile towel to dry and cover the baby. Clean blade. The umbilical cord is to be cut with a clean blade or scissor. Clean tie. The cord should be clamped with a clean and sterile clamp, and nothing should be applied on the cord, as it should be kept dry. So if you go through this algorithm, here the first 2 lines, from birth to term, immediately after birth, we have to ask for 3 questions: whether the child is whether it is a term gestation, whether it's a good tone, whether the baby is having good tone or not, and whether there is any spontaneous breathing or crying. If the answer to these questions is yes, we should make the infant stay with mother for routine care like warmth care to prevent hypothermia. We should ensure clear airways, and we should dry the baby, and after that we have to go for evaluation like vitals, everything, cot care, vitals, cot care, everything. So now we'll be dealing with only the term child, term baby with good tone and who is having spontaneous breathing. So care of newborn immediately after birth. As I told you, if the newborn is term with spontaneous cry or breathing and having good tone, the main parameter, the main steps which we have to take is, first we have to provide warmth, then we have to dry the baby with pre-warmed linens to prevent heat loss, and if it's a preterm baby, we have to use plastic wraps. We have to ensure open airway by wiping the baby's mouth and nose using a clean cloth, or else you can use a mucus sucker and you can clear the secretions from the mouth and nose. The sequence will be first mouth followed by nose, as the neonates are always nasal breathers. So first, if you block the nose, then there is a chance of aspiration. So first you have to chance of aspiration of the secretions. So first you have to clear the mouth followed by nose. Ongoing evaluation in the form of Apgar score and examination of the umbilical vessels for the number of arteries and veins. Usually we should have 2 arteries and 1 vein. If there is a single artery, we should look for another congenital anomalous. So how to provide warmth? The temperature of the delivery room should be maintained at 25 to 28 degrees centigrade, and it should be free from flow of air or draft of air. The baby should be received in a pre-warmed sterile linen sheet at birth. After cleaning the baby, we have to remove the wet linens. Early skin to skin contact with mother. We have to wear caps and socks to the child. So how to prevent hypothermia? By giving warmth care. There is a terminology called warm chain, which is nothing but this. It is a strategy of prevention of hypothermia. There are 10 steps in warm chain. It's a short question for you, so you have to read this one. There are 10 steps of warm chair. We should have warm delivery room, warm resuscitation. If we warm resuscitation means resuscitation under a preheated warmer. Immediate drying of the baby, skin to skin contact with mother, initiation, immediate initiation of breastfeeding. Bathing should be postponed till 72 hours. Appropriate clothing should be done. Mother and baby should be kept together. There should be a professional alertness by the physician, and there should be a warm transportation. As I told you, there are 5 steps. First is warmth care, dryness, open airways, and evaluation. While doing all these things, we have to evaluate the child's cardiopulmonary status by means of vitals or Apgar score, and we should examine the umbilical vessels. So Apgar score. The Apgar score should it be having 5 parameters. First is A for activity or muscle tone, P for pulse or heart rate, G for grimace or reflex response, A for appearance or skin color, R for respiration. So Apgar score should be recorded at 1 minute and 5 minutes of birth. There will be a scoring which extends from 0 to 2. The first sign, activity or muscle tone. If there is if the baby is limping, the score will be 0. If there is some flexion, it will be 1. And if there are active movements, it will be 2. Heart rate, if absent, it's 0. If the heart rate is less than 100, the score is 1. And if it is more than 100, the score is 2. Grimace or reflex response, we can check this one by passing a nasogastric tube through the nose to clear the secretions of the stomach. By that way, if there is cough or sneeze while passing a nasogastric tube, the score will be 2. If there is grimace, means slight resistance, score will be 1, and if there is no response, score is 0. Appearance or skin color, if it is blue or pale, the score is 0. Body is pink and extremities are blue, which is nothing but acrocyanosis, that the score will be 1, and if it is completely pink, the score is 2. Respiration, absent means score is 0. If there is a weak cry, it's 1, and if there is good strong cry, that is score is 2. This score has got a limited value in guiding for resuscitation and initial stabilization. Also, the prediction, these are the drawbacks of the Apgar score. It has a limited value in guiding for resuscitation and initial stabilization, which I'll be telling you later, because sometimes there may be a falsely low scores in infants who are born to very preterm, or if there is if there is higher amount of sedation given to mother, if the child is having a congenital heart disease, if there are any CNS malformations, Apgar score might be 0, might be low, but that doesn't mean that the child will not improve after enough oxygenation or resuscitation. So that's why Apgar score has got limited value in guiding for resuscitation. And also the prediction of subsequent outcome by Apgar score is also poor. But the change in the Apgar scores at sequential time points can reflect how well but by this regular assessment of Apgar scores, we can know how well the baby is responding to the resuscitative efforts. If the score is less than 7, it is assessed every 5 minutes until 20 minutes or till 2 successive scores of 7 or greater. Usually the total score will be 10, and if it is 7 to 10, that there is no depression. If there is if the score is 46, that is a mild depression child. If it is 0 to 3, there is severe depression of the baby. Low Apgar scores are sometimes poor predictors of long-term neurodevelopmental outcomes. Apgar score is a short question for you. So first, immediately after delivery, the first step will be, you have to ask yourself whether the child is term, whether it's having good tone, whether there is spontaneous breathing. If yes, we have to bring it to the mother, keep the child with the mother, and you have to provide warmth care. You have to dry the baby. You have to make sure that the airways are open, you have to go for an Apgar score for monitoring of vitals and examination of the umbilical vessels. For providing care, I've told you, you have to follow the 10 steps of warm chain. And for evaluation of vitals, you have to go for Apgar score. Now coming to the clamping of cord. The umbilical cord should be clamped at 2 to 3 centimeters away from the abdomen using a clamp cord clamp, and a clean and autoclave thread or a sterile rubber band. If the child is stable, term, irrespective of gestational age, we can delay the clamping of umbilical cord, which will allow transfer of additional blood from placenta to infant. By that, we can prevent anemia also. But if the child is unstable, immediately we have to clamp the umbilical cord, and we should take the child for resuscitation under the preheated warmers. We have to place an identity band to the child containing name of the mother, hospital registration number, gender, and birth weight. Also, we have to take care of the eye by cleaning the eyes with separate swabs using saline water or sterile water. A routine stomach wash is usually not advised if the child is term and stable, but sometimes there is a chance of choanal atresia. So in that case, to know whether the patency of the nostrils are present or not, we can pass a nasogastric tube and can do stomach wash. We can put a nasogastric tube, and we can know the patency of the nostrils, and by that way, because you have already passed a nasogastric tube, we can go for routine stomach wash. Otherwise, if the child is stable, there is no need of, and there is a spontaneous cry, there is no need of stomach wash. Patency of esophagus should be ascertained at birth in the following circumstances: if there is any presence of polyhydramnios, if there is any antenatally suspected esophageal atresia or diaphragmatic hernia, excessive frothing is there, if there is a presence of any vertebral or anorectal anomalies, we have to check for the patency of esophagus, which again we can do with orogastric or nasogastric tube. Cord should be clamped at 2 to centimeters away from the abdomen, which I have already told you. So that is the initial management. Immediately after birth, if the child is stable, we have to bring that to the mother. We have to provide warmth care. We have to dry the baby. We have to ensure there is open airways. We have to check for vitals in the form of Apgar score, and we have to take care of the cord. So after few hours after birth, what we have to do is, first we have to record the weight. The baby should be weighed after the temperature is documented to normal. Then we have to initiate breastfeeding. We have to give vitamin K. If the child is less than 1 kilo, we have to give 0.5 mg. And if the child is more than 1 kilo, we have to give 1 mg of vitamin K. Usually vitamin K1 should be used. And first examination, the baby should be thoroughly examined for midline structures, example, cleft lip, cleft palate, omphalocele, meningocele, myelomeningocele, spina bifida, everything. We have to check for the anal opening patency. We have to check for any birth injuries. We have to check for the axillary temperature during the first examination. So initial few hours, recording of the weight should be done. First examination, we have to check for any midline structural abnormalities. We have to check for anal opening patency. We have to check for birth injuries. We have to check for the axillary temperature. Followed by breastfeeding should be initiated, and vitamin K1 is given. After that, communication with the family. We have to tell them few findings of us, whether the child is stable or not, that is well-being of the child. We have to give them information regarding the birth weight and gender of the baby. Last one is rooming in. Rooming in is nothing but child and baby and mother kept together in a room. Normal newborn baby should be with mother in the initial few hours. Rooming in will facilitate early breastfeeding and bonding. And during rooming in, infants' weight, length, and head circumference are recorded to classify as appropriate for gestational age, short for gestational age, or large for gestational age. And if the gestational age is uncertain, we have to assess the gestational age by performing expanded Ballard score. All this can be done while the child is in rooming in. The first bath is given with warm tap water and non-medicated soap after an axillary temperature of 97.5 degrees Fahrenheit has been recorded. And routine vaccination at birth like OPV, hepatitis, and BCG can be given during rooming in. These are the steps during initial few hours, and the steps after the initial beyond few hours. We should take care of the cord. We should make sure that the cord is kept dry. We have to advise for oil massages, of which coconut oil is of good choice. And we have to prevent oils with additives or irritants like mustard oil. Exclusive breastfeeding should be encouraged. Position of the sleep, all term infants should be kept in supine position, and for preterm we can try for prone position for active ventilation under supervision. Complete physical examination should be done within 24 hours. Physical examination in the sense systemic examination. Vitals should be recorded every 8 to 12 hours, and weights are recorded in the infant chart. Also, urine and stool output is recorded. Discharge protocol. The routine following criteria should be met by all babies prior to discharge. The routine formal examination in the newborn has to be performed and documented and make sure that the child is normal in all aspects. Newborn is breastfeeding properly, and the adequacy of feeds can be determined by passing. The newborn is breastfeeding properly, and the baby is tolerating those feeds. We can check for the adequacy of the breastfeeding by few parameters like passing of urine every 6 to 8 times every 24 hours, and baby is sleeping well for 2 to 3 hours after feed, and there is enough weight gain. Also, we have to make sure that newborn has received the immunization as per schedule before discharge, and we have to talk to mother, and we have to make sure that mother is confident and trained to take care of the neonate. And we have to make sure that newborn is not having any significant jaundice or any other illness which require closer observation by the health provider. We should counsel the mother regarding routine mother care, and her queries are answered. All her queries are answered, and follow-up advice should be communicated to the mother. If the child is born to a primigravida mother, they should be called for follow-up visit at 48 hours of discharge. If discharged before 48 hours. If the child is discharged before 48 hours, again we have to call them for follow-up visit at 48 hours. Danger signs which we have to explain to the mother. They are difficulty in feeding, convulsions, lethargy, fast breathing, severe chest indrawing, temperature of more than 37.5 to below 30 or below 35.5 degrees centigrade. Follow-up. A normal newborn with adequacy of breastfeeding and no significant jaundice by 72 hours of age can be seen at 6 weeks of age. And if there is any presence of high risk factors like low birth weight, prematurity, significant jaundice, or feeding which has not yet established, they can be called within 2 to 3 days of discharge. Regularly what we have to make sure is we have to explain to them how to feed the child, how to check for the adequacy of feeding, how to take care after feeding in the form of burping. We have to make sure, we have to tell them about the warning signs, and if you are sure that the mother is confident enough of taking care or following all this or checking for all these danger signs, we can discharge the child. Some common parental concerns, which I don't think you need now. What else? Common parental concerns, I will tell you. Weight loss in the first week. Normally, babies lose 8 to 10% of birth weight in the first week of life, which is regained by 7 to 10 days. Subsequently, up to 3 months, they will be gaining of around 20 to 30 grams per day. Usually for 40 grams, here it is given as 40 grams, but 20 to 30 grams per day. After 3 months, it will be 15 to 20 grams per day. And after 7, and I mean, after from 3rd month to 6th month, it will be 15 to 20 grams per day. Weight gain will be there. And from 6 to 9 months, it will be 10 to 15 grams per day. And from 9 to 12, it will be 10 grams per day. So crying during micturition, the sensation of full bladder is uncomfortable to many babies. So they cry before passing, and even after passing urine also they will cry once the diaper gets wet or clothing under the child gets wet. So, and bathing during the first week till cord falls off, only sponging is recommended, which can be given after the first 24 hours life. Later bathing every 2 to 3 days is quite sufficient. Regurgitation. Normally, newborn babies will have a lax sphincters at the lower esophageal sphincter will be lax. There is every chance of gastric esophageal reflux disorder. So babies commonly regurgitate a small amount of curdled milk soon after feeding. This behavior is more normal as long as the baby is gaining weight and passes urine 6 to 8 times per day. Frequent stools. During the first few days of life, the stool color in the breastfed neonate changes from black to green to yellow by the end of first week. In between, the stool appears loose, that is called transitional stool. The stool frequency may increase at this time, but it is due to enhanced gastrocolic reflex, which results in passage of small stools just after feeding. If the baby remains well hydrated and has no signs of sepsis, feeds well, passes urine 6 to 8 times per day, and gains enough weight, there is no cause of concern for these frequent free stools. Breast engorgement, because of the transplacental transmitted hormones from mother, the breast in boys and girls may get hypertrophied and secrete milk-like fluid. Rashes and skin peeling, papillary lesions. There are two types: erythema toxicum, which is nothing but papillary lesions on erythematous base. It's commonly seen in babies from 2nd day to 7th day of life, and these are usually seen on the trunk and face, and they get subsided after 7 days. On the other hand, there is other disorder called pyoderma, which is nothing but pus-filled lesions. If the lesions are less than 10, we can apply antibiotic cream, and if it is more than 10, we have to rule out sepsis, and we have to give systemic antibiotics. Diaper rash, there is redness and inflammation and excoriation of skin in diaper area due to maceration by stools and urine. So now coming to care of low birth weight and preterm babies. What do you mean by low birth weight? An infant with a birth weight of less than 2,500 grams within 1 hour of birth, regardless of gestation age, is a low birth weight infant. Grading will be if the weight is between 1,500 to 2,500 grams, it is called low birth weight. If the weight is between 100 to 15,000 to 1,500 grams, it is called very low birth weight baby. If it is less than 1,000 grams, it's called extremely low birth weight baby. And if it is less than 800 grams, it is called micropreemie. Causes of low birth weight, there are two types of low birth weight. One who is preterm and one who is small for date. Preterm means less than that birth with less than 37 completed weeks of gestation, which accounts for 1/3 of the low birth weight infants. Small for date or intrauterine growth retardation, which is nothing but deviation in the normal growth pattern or less than 10 centile of the gestational of the normal population. It accounts for 2/3 of the low birth weight. So usually the causes of low birth weight is either preterm or intrauterine growth retardation. So how do you identify low birth weight baby? Because of prematurity. basing on the date of LMP, that is last menstrual period, basing on Ballard scoring, basing on the physical features by breast nodules, genitalia, sole creases, ear cartilage, hair changes also. We can tell whether the child is low birth weight or whether the child is premature or not. Breast nodule will be smaller and less pigmented. Genitalia, the scrotum will be, in term, the scrotum will be pigmented, and in preterm it is less pigmented. Here you can see the difference. Labia majora covering labia minora in the term. In various preterm, it is not seen like that. Sole creases are present in preterm, in term, and it's not present in preterm. Ear cartilage, recoiling of cartilage will be there in term, which is not there in preterm. So this is the, if we get a low birth weight baby, so you have to assess whether we have to think of two causes, prematurity and intrauterine growth retardation. So whether to know if it is a prematurity, we should look for these physical features which I have shown the figures, and also you have to go for Ballard scoring and from the date of the last menstrual. And if you want to know whether it is due to IUGR, then you have to go for these charts, IUG intrauterine growth charts, wherein you can see if the weight falls between 10th percentile and 90th percentile, it is appropriate. And if the weight falls as per the gestational, in the down you can see as per the gestational age, if the weight falls below 10 percentile, it is small for date. And if the weight falls above 90th percentile, it is called large for date. So by means of these growth charts, by means of physical characteristic like emaciated look, loose folds of skin, lack of subcutaneous tissue, head bigger than chest by greater than 3 centimeters, we can find out whether it is a IUG or a preterm. So low birth weight or preterm low birth weight problems usually will be early complications will be hypothermia, hypoglycemia, respiratory distress syndrome, problems of, because all these are due to immaturity. So immaturity of the organs. So early complications will be hypothermia, hypoglycemia, respiratory distress syndrome. There will be problems of GIT like gastric esophageal reflux disorder, necrotizing enterocolitis. There will be patent ductus arteriosus. There will be anemia of prematurity. There can be exaggeration of the physiological jaundice. There may be infections. There may be hemorrhages, the GIT, pulmonary or intraventricular. These are all early complications. Late complications will be like metabolic bone disease in the form of rickets of prematurity, osteopenia of prematurity, retinopathy of prematurity will be there, delayed growth and development, cerebral palsy and other neurological deficits. IUGR low birth weight complications will be birth asphyxia, meconium aspiration syndrome, hypothermia, hypoglycemia, infections, and polycythemia. We have to deal with all these complications while taking care of the low birth weight babies. So now management of low birth weight baby. If the child is more than 1.8 kilos and is stable, it requires special care at home. If the child is more than 1.5 kilos but less than 1.8 kilos, we have to give him hospital care. If the child is less than 1.5, we have to manage in the NICU. So indications of hospitalization for low birth weight babes. Birth weight of less than 1800 grams, gestation of less than 34 weeks. If the baby is sick and is unable to feed, we have to hospitalize the child. And if the birth weight is more than 1800 grams, if gestation of more than 34 weeks, and if child is stable and healthy, you can send them at home and can ask for special care at home. So management of low birth weight infants or preterm infants. During pregnancy and labor, we have to check whether there is antenatal corticosteroid injections given or not, and if there is rupture of membranes before the onset of labor, empirical antibiotics should be started. So preterm low birth weight delivery management will be like, because low birth weight babies are more prone to asphyxia, so we have to think of resuscitation, and when we should be get ready for resuscitation. So immediately after birth, child should be transferred to a warmer and or NICU. It should be transferred to NICU, and we have to start resuscitation if required under the preheated warmers. So you have to consider for early intubation, early CPAP, prevention of hypothermia, and prevention of hyperoxia. So whenever there is a preterm low birth weight delivery baby, because there is every chance of getting asphyxiated, they should be ready with all the guidelines of resuscitation. And at times, if the child is less than 1000 grams, we should intubate irrespective of the symptoms. It's an important point. If the child is less than 1000 grams, or that is extremely low birth weight baby, we have to intubate, and ventilation should be started irrespective of symptoms. So early intubation, early CPAP, we have to prevent hypothermia by giving warmth care, and prevention of hyperoxia should be taken care. Principles of management of preterm low birth weight. First is warmth care to prevent hypothermia. Feeding, it is very important as these children are malnourished, and also to prevent malnutrition also, feeding and fluids and feeding are very important. So first is warmth care, next is feeding. You should take care of umbilical cord. Early cord clamping should be done, and baby should be shifted. Vitamin K, if the child is more than 1 kilo, 1 mg IM should be given, and if it is less than 1 kilo, 0.5 mg IM. And we have to check for any complications, which I have told you earlier, and you have to manage those complications. So prevention of hypothermia. How to prevent hypothermia? By giving appropriate warmth care. Better temperature control is achieved with at least one of the following techniques. Immediate wrapping of the undried baby's body and extremities in a plastic wrap, or by placing the baby in a plastic bag. We have to by using exothermic mattresses. Radiant warmers should be used during resuscitation stabilization. Heated incubators should be used for transportation. And we have to ensure that the delivery room is maintained at 20 to 26 degrees Celsius. And external heat sources, including skin-to-skin care and transformer matters, should be used. Preterm stable infants can be covered with clothes and caps and covered with a blanket. There is no need of plastic wrapping if the preterm infant is stable. The important one is kangaroo mother care. By all these techniques, we can give warmth care and prevent hypothermia. So in hospital, how you give warmth care? By heated water-filled mattresses, air-heated incubators. That means heated incubators. Radiant warmers should be used for resuscitation and stabilization. Kangaroo mother care. It is one of the, if the child is stable and if the baby is not on oral fluids, if not on oxygen or ventilation, and if child is not on IV fluids, we can try for kangaroo mother care. If the child is less than 1200 grams, it may take some weeks to start kangaroo mother care. If the child is more than 1200 and is less than 1800 grams, it may take some days to start kangaroo mother care. And if the child is more than 1800 grams, we can start kangaroo mother care at the earliest. So definition of kangaroo mother care: it is early, prolonged, and continuous skin-to-skin contact between a mother and her newborn. It could be done in hospital or after early discharge, and even at home. So how to use kangaroo mother care? First, we have to newborn's position. Look for the newborn's position. Newborn should be held upright or diagonally and prone against skin of the mother between her breasts. Head is turned on its side under mother's chin, and head, neck, and trunk are well extended to avoid obstruction to airways. Newborn, that is a position. Newborn's clothing should be usually naked except for nappy and cap. Maybe dressed in light clothing. Mother covers newborn with her own clothes and added blankets or shawls. So no need to. So you can keep the child naked also. Benefits of kangaroo mother care. It is an efficient way of keeping newborn warm. It helps breathing of newborn to be more regular, and it reduces the frequency of apneic episodes. Promotes breastfeeding growth and extrauterine adaptation at the earliest. Increases mother's confidence, ability, and involvement in the care of her small newborn. Acceptable in different cultures and environments. Kangaroo mother care, it's an important question for you. Parameters to be monitored during kangaroo mother care. Temperature once in 6 hours. Respiration, we have to look for apneic attacks. Feeding once in 90 to 120 minutes. Well-being by educating mother about the danger signs. Growth gain of 15 to 20 grams per kg per day should be there. And there should be complaints with the kangaroo care. The important thing in the management, important step in the management of low birth weight babies is fluids and the feeding. Because preterms have higher proportion of total body weight, they may lose 10 to 15% of body weight during their first week of life. Also, insensible water loss from skin and respiratory tract is higher in preterm babies. Healthy babies of 1200 grams and more should be started on enteral feeds with breast milk. Enteral feed means directly giving food to the the stomach. Baby of more than 18 grams and healthy, if the baby is 1200 grams and more and is healthy, we can start on enteral feeds with breast milk, with expressed breast milk. And if the baby is more than 1800 grams and healthy, we can start directly breastfeeding. So methods of feeding in low birth weight babies. Either direct and exclusive breastfeeding, which I have told for babies who are more than 1800 grams and stable. Oral or nasogastric feeding, that is enteral feeding. Oral or nasogastric feeding or spoon or palatal feeding, that is enteral feeding for children who are more than 1200 grams and stable. And IV fluids for babies who are less than 1200 grams. So there are 4 methods of feeding. There is either direct and exclusive breastfeeding, oral or nasogastric tube feeding, that is called Gavis feeding, spoon or palatal feeding, and IV fluids. IV fluids, direct breastfeeding for babies who are more than 1800 grams, oral or nasogastric feeding and spoon or palatal feeding for babies who are more than 1200 grams, and for babies who are less than 1200 grams, IV fluids can be started directly. Appropriate method of feeding in a given low birth weight infant, it depends on the few factors like the child should be, whether the child is sick or healthy, whether the feeding ability of the infant, which depends on the gestational maturity, is present or not. Because feeding ability as per gestational age, if we can go through once, breastfeeding usually requires suck, swallow, and breathing coordination skill, which matures with increasing gestational age. Sucking pattern is not seen until 32 to 34 weeks of gestation. So, and a coordination between sucking, swallowing, and breathing will not mature until 34 weeks of gestation, and it fully matures by 37 weeks of gestation. So, as per this, if until 32 to 30, because until 32 to 34 weeks, there is no sucking pattern, we can go for IV fluids or directly orogastric or nasogastric fluid. And if there is any mild coordination, and if there is any coordination between sucking, swallow, if there is any early coordination between sucking, swallow, and breathing, we can go for breastfeed or palatal feeds or spoon feeds. And if there is mature sucking, swallow, and coordination, we can go for breastfeeding directly. So this is a very important point, which is called non-nutritive sucking. That means all stable low birth weight infants, irrespective of their initial feeding method, either it can be breastfeeding or spoon feeding or orogastric, they should be put on their mother's breast at least once or twice a day, because this will help in rapid maturation of feeding skills and also improve milk secretion in mother. So now you have a child with more than 34 weeks gestation, by which time there is maturation of the suck, swallow and breathing coordination. So we can initiate breastfeeding. If the attachment and positioning is good and baby is able to suck effectively and long enough, we can continue with breastfeeding. And if there is no effective sucking and if there is no effective feeding, then we have to step down to spoon or palatal feeding. Also, spoon and palatal feeding can be started if the child's gestational age is between 32 and 34 weeks. And while giving spoon or palatal feeding, we have to observe whether the child is accepting well without spilling or coughing and is able to take adequate amount. If everything is fine, we can continue with spoon or palatal feeding. And if the child is not accepting spoon or palatal feeding, we have to go for orogastric or nasogastric tubing. Orogastric or nasogastric tubing, if the child is less than 32 weeks also, we can start directly with orogastric or nasogastric tubing. And while giving orogastric or nasogastric tube feeding, we have to see for whether there is any abdominal distension by means of abdominal gut examination daily, and if there is any regurgitation of feeds. If there is no regurgitation, no abdominal distension, gastric tube feeding can be continued. And if there is any of these things, we have to start IV fluids. In one way, in simplest way, if the child is less than 28 weeks, start with IV fluids. If the child is between 28 and 32 weeks, start with orogastric or nasogastric tube. If the child is between 32 and 34 weeks, start with spoon or palatal feeding. And because by this time, suck, swallow and breathing coordination will not be there. And if the baby is more than 34 weeks, start with breastfeeding. So weight of less than 200 grams and gestational age at less than 30 weeks, start initially intravenous fluids. Introduce gavage feeds once the child is stable, and slowly shift to Katoria spoon feeds over next few days. Later on, breastfeeding. If the child is less than 1200 grams and gestation is less than 30 weeks, irrespective of any symptoms, we have to start antibiotic administration also along with feeding. If the baby is 1200 to 1800 grams and gestational age is 30 to 34 weeks, start initially with gavage feeding, that is spoon or palatal or oral and nasogastric or oral feeds, followed by Katori or spoon feeding after 1 to 3 days. And if child is accepting Katori or spoon feeding, we have to shift to breastfeeds as soon as the baby is able to suck. Here you have to, by this above diagram, we can understand that once you have started with IV fluids, don't stuck to the IV fluids. We have to start orogastric tube feeding slowly with with 1 to 3 ml or with around 1 to 5 ml per day, and with slow increments day by day. And if we see that the child is accepting and tolerating feeds, we can increase the orogastric tube feeds and we can decrease the IV fluids. And if the child is accepting very well the orogastric or nasogastric tube, we can try for spoon feeding or palatal feeding. And if the baby is accepting, reduce the orogastric or nasogastric tube feeding and increase the spoon or palatal feeding. And the child is able to accept spoon or palatal feeding without any spilling or coughing and is taking adequate amount, reduce the spoon or palatal feeding and encourage the breastfeeding. Step down and step up pattern. Weight more than 1800 grams and gestational age more than 34 weeks, by which the swallowing and breathing coordination is complete. We can go directly with breastfeeding. And if the sucking is not appropriate, and if the child is not taking enough feeds or not spending enough time, we can step down to Katori or spoon feeding. And once the Katori and spoon feeding is stable, is acceptable, shift to breastfeeds as soon as possible. See here, once a child is started on IV fluids, and if you see that baby is hemodynamically stable, you have to start tropic feeds by orogastric and check for feeding intolerance. If the child is accepting well, reduce the IV fluids and increase the feed volume by orogastric or nasogastric tube. And if the infant on orogastric or nasogastric tube at 30 or 32 weeks gestation age, you have to encourage for non-nutritive sucking and encourage for spoon feeds. If the child is accepting the spoon feeds, you can increase the frequency and you can reduce the orogastric feeds accordingly. Once the child is accepting spoon feeding, spoon or palatal feeds, we can try for breastfeeding alternatively. And if there is good attachment and effective sucking, taper the spoon feeds and go to breastfeeds. So IV fluids. Indications of IV fluids will be when the baby is sick, irrespective of gestation age, or babies are less than 1200 grams or less than 30 weeks gestation. Choice of fluid will be if the weight is less than 1000 grams, and less than 1000 grams, it should be 5% dextrose, and if the weight is more than 1000 grams, it is 10% dextrose for the first 48 hours. Babies less, after that we can add electrolytes to this dextrose fluid. So if the baby is less than 1500 grams, initially we have to start with 80 ml per kg per day for first 48 hours with 10% dextrose. There should be a daily increment of 15 ml per kg per day and an extra 20 ml per kg we have to add if the child is under radiant warmer, and an extra 15 ml per kg is to be added if the child is on phototherapy. Maximum of child feeding fluid should reach to a max of 150 ml per kg per day by 7th day of life. Sodium and potassium are to be added to IV fluids after 48 hours. Here, what we do in NSC is we'll take 3 parts of 25. We'll take 3 parts of isolate P and 1 part of 25% dextrose. We'll mix both, and by that we can give sodium and potassium as per requirement, and also 10% dextrose will be achieved. Why 10% dextrose means we have to make sure that the glucose infusion rate is 4 to 6 mg per kg per day. Per hour, sorry. Babies more than 15 and less than, if it is less than 1500 grams, fluid requirement will be initially 80 ml per kg per day for the first 48 hours, and then there should be daily increment of 15 ml per kg per day plus 20 ml for babies under radiant warmer plus 15 ml per kg for babies under phototherapy. Max of 150 ml per kg per day by 7th day of life. Initial fluid will be 10% dextrose, and if the child is less than 1000 grams, it will be 5% dextrose. And if the baby is more than 1500 grams, initially we have to start with 60 ml per kg per day for 48 hours. Initial fluid will be 10% dextrose, as I told you, and extra 20 ml for radiant warmer and 15 ml per kg for babies on phototherapy. That is common for both for babies under less than 1500 grams and more than 1500 grams. Sodium and potassium are to be added after 48 hours. To achieve that, as I told you again, I am repeating, we will mix 1 part of 25% dextrose fluid with 3 parts of IV fluid, and by that we can achieve 10% dextrose plus sodium and potassium as per requirement. That is 2 to 3 milliequivalents will be given. Fluid requirement day 1 it will be 60 if it is more than 1500 grams, and if it is less than that 1000 to 1500 grams, it will be 80 mg. Daily increments will be 15. From 7th day onwards, it will be 150 for babies of more than 1500 grams, and for babies between 100 to 150, 1000 to 1500 grams, it will be 170 ml per kg per day. Enteral feeds. Feeding and when stabilized, enteral feeds are they should be begun with expressed breast milk starting with a volume of 30 ml per kg per day on day 1, and depending on the tolerance, it can be increased to 10 to 20 ml per kg per day, and IV fluids are reduced. enteral feeds are nothing but orogastric or nasogastric fluids. We have on day one we have to give 30 ml per kg per day, and if child is accepting, we can increase the volume and we can taper off the IV fluids. A spoon or palatal feeding, it should begin with spoon and palatal feeding. It should begin at 60 to 80 ml per kg per day. Increments will be 15 ml per kg per day, and by 7th day we can reach 180, maximum of 1800 to 200 ml, 180 to 200 ml per kg per day should be given. First feed at 2 hours of age, and then every second hour. So this is called Gavis feeding, that is orogastric tube will be kept, and through syringe we can give directly into the intestine. This is called Catoris feeding. It can give it between 32 to 34 weeks. So, nutritional supplements for infants with birth weight of 1500 to 2499 grams. Nutritional supplements will be vitamin A in 1000 international units per day to protect the epithelium and to prevent chronic lung disease. Vitamin D will be 400 international units per day from 2 weeks to 1 year of age should be given. Iron 2 mg per kg per day from 8 weeks to 1 year of age. In very low birth weight babies, we have to give calcium and phosphorus. Calcium will be 140 to 160 mg per kg per day, and phosphorus will be 70 to 80 mg per kg day. Multivitamin drops and vitamin D3. For babies, for extremely low birth weight babies, vitamin D3 will be 1800 international units per day, and for low birth weight, very low birth weight and low birth weight babies, it will be 400 international units per day. Folate should be given with 50 micrograms per kg per day, iron 2 mg per kg per day, vitamin A for 1500 international units per day. Supplementation is also done by fortification of express birth milk with human milk fortifiers. And all this supplementation, everything can be given only till term gestation, that is for 40 weeks of gestation in very low birth weight babies. And after this period, only vitamin D and iron are sufficient. Adequacy of nutrition, weight pattern loses 1 to 2% weight every day initially, with cumulative weight loss of 10%, it will be more than 10% in preterm. It will regain birth weight by 10 to 14 days, after which weight gain will be 1 to 1.5% of birth weight daily. Excessive loss of or inadequate weight is seen in cold stress, anemia, poor intake, or sepsis. We have to look for the complications, like management of the complications we can deal with the next class. Thank you. Discharge criteria for very low birth weight babies are, for low birth weight babies are, weight gain of at least 40 grams a day for 5 consecutive days. Baby should feed well on breast milk. Temperature should be maintained. There should not be any evidence of illness. Successful in-hospital adaptation of the mother and other members of the family. Follow-up after discharge. KMC is continued at home. Follow-up is done daily by the health worker for 1 week and ensure the baby is feeding well and gaining 40 grams weight daily. After 1 week, till the baby reaches 40 weeks of post-conception age. Thank you. In the next class, I'll deal with the complications specifically.